Hello there, this is John Burroughs again. I'm going to continue with my autobiography, 7 Years to Life. And this is chapter 55, and it's called You Have to Pick Yourself Up and Get Back into the Race. Eddie had met this guy by the name of Lee. He and some of his friends moved to San Mateo from Cleveland, Ohio. Lee lived in a house with a guy named Lance, by the name of Lance, and I started going over there with Eddie and hanging out with the Ohio boys and girls. Like everyone else at the time, Lee liked to do drugs. His drugs of choice varied from coke to lewd to beer and sometimes pot. I was hanging out at the house one time, and we were in Lee's bedroom where he was cutting out lines of coke for us to snort. Eddie was in the living room with some other people. We snorted our lines and brought out some more lines out for the other people to enjoy. We were all drinking and snorting, and I said to Lee that I noticed you had an acoustical guitar in your bedroom. I asked him if he played, and he said he had not in quite a while. Lance chimed in that he had a guitar also. I was getting that wonderful alcohol high that only can be achieved by mixing it with good cocaine. I asked Lee and Lance to bring out their guitars and to strum some oldies. They played everything from The Wanderer to more current songs from the Beatles and Stones. I sang to each and every one of them. I could see that Lee was impressed with my voice, and everybody in the room was enjoying our little impromptu show. We played and sang long into the night, and it was the best feeling I had in months. I felt my self-esteem grow and renewed purpose in my heart. Singing was, and always has been, my second love. It became a ritual each weekend. We would get high on whatever was available and jam most of the night. It was weekly therapy, and though I was still constantly high, confidence was now added to my renewed self-esteem. Lee, who had also recently lost his longtime girlfriend and was attempting to win his battle with heartbreak and depression, and we started writing our own original songs. Many of the songs we wrote together were quite good, primarily due to the fact that they expressed our feelings about our present circumstances with true passion and genuine emotion. The ability to express our feelings of love lost through music provided a release that was sorely needed. Some of our other songs were spawned from revenge and anger and provided a release that was purely primal, and those are the songs that we are not especially proud of. Over the years, band members changed and we played local bars and parties, but eventually I tired of the drinking and the drugs. It had been quite some time since I had seen Lee when he came driving into the gas station one day. I had not talked to Eddie in quite a while since he moved to Nevada with his new girlfriend that I had never met. So after greeting Lee, I asked if he had seen or spoke with Eddie in a while, and the question took him off guard. He told me that was why he decided to come by the station. Eddie had died the previous night. Though I never voiced my opinion about it, I am sure it was from a cocaine and booze overdose in conjunction with his refusal to attempt to control his diabetes. Lee mentioned some of the people that were at his house that night, and everyone he mentioned were basically coke addicts. Hearing this almost brought me to my knees for so many different reasons. The obvious one is that I loved him like a brother, and had never made the time, though I was always intending to, but the time that my job required and my own proclivity towards procrastination caused me to be absent on the night my best friend died. I don't think I could have prevented him from doing whatever he did that night to cause his death, but the knowledge that I may have been able to stop him has caused me a sense of guilt that I have never been able to eradicate. He was a guy that I had shared my intimate thoughts, hopes, and dreams with, and I missed the chance to say goodbye and thank him for always having my back. I received 2 phone calls that night, one from Eddie's aunt and the other from his girlfriend that I had never met. Both calls were for the same reasons, to tell me that Eddie had died and would I help plan the funeral arrangements. Of course I agreed, and I had a long conversation, often interrupted by uncontrollable sobs, tears, and the silence that happens when someone is trying to recover from a loved one's death with his girlfriend. She told me that Eddie often spoke about me and always referred to me as Harrington, and that he had to call me to get together because of how much he missed me, and he wanted to introduce her to me. She said that it felt at times that he loved me more than he loved her. I did help with the funeral arrangements as much as I could, both financially and the conversations that were needed to arrange the funeral at St. Gregory's. So many of his friends showed up that it warmed my heart. At the time, I had just begun to date my second wife, and she did not know him well, but I saw a look of panic on her face when I was talking with her, and Eddie's aunt telling them that I had invited everyone that wanted to, that they could come over to my apartment to celebrate Eddie's legacy. It was at that time that Danny, Eddie's brother, tapped me on my shoulder and said Georgia had attended, and I did not even notice her. Anyway, Danny said she wanted to ask me a question. She was standing on the front steps of the church and talking with Tom Kay, who was pathetically salivating at the prospect of getting together with her, even though he was fully aware of the details of my split with Georgia and her preference for women. It was a year since I told her I no longer wanted to see her again. She was impeccably dressed, and justifiably so. Susie was intimidated by her beauty. I was not at all happy to see her. As I turned to walk over and find out what Georgia wanted to ask me, Susie grabbed my arm and made it abundantly clear that she was not welcome at our apartment, regardless of the present circumstances. Her insecurity was clouding her better judgment. I walked up to Georgia and we hugged. She said, "I know this is a very sad day for you, but I want to remind you that Eddie and I were pretty close. I did not want to assume it would be okay for me to go to your apartment, but I would like to share my memories about him." Inside, I became angry and frustrated because there was not a reason in the world that I should say no, other than Susie's demand that Georgia not be allowed to participate in the celebration. Everyone knew me, including Susie, knew that Georgia and I were finished, and the only reason she was there because of the bond that had formed between her and Eddie while I had been married to her, and I knew, because he told me, how he hoped that I would not mind if he stayed friends with her after our split. I was furious at Susie for putting me in this position. However, she paid part of the rent on the apartment. I said to Georgia, "I'm not going to get into all the reasons or justifications for me saying no, but that is what I am saying, no." She started to protest, but the look on my face told her it was useless. She started to cry and turned and walked away. I would be a liar if I were to try and say that Eddie would not have wanted her there, because I know Eddie would have. Eddie, if you're up there reading this, I hope you know I'm truly sorry. I did not formally break up with Susie. I continued to pay my share of rent, but I was so dismayed and disgusted with her about the whole incident that I stayed away from her for the better part of 3 months. I went back to heavily drinking and smoking pot. I went bar hopping, looking for some different, and at the same time struggled with whether or not I really wanted a relationship or just live without romance and everything associated with it. This time my motivation was to do the right thing, or at least what I thought was the right thing. One of the bars that I had frequented more than any other was a popular watering hole called the Bit of England. I had known a Bit of England, and that was because of Marlene, a waitress there. She was a special person that I had known for a very short time, but she showed me what it meant to get back in the race.